She had no money. She had no family. She had nothing except one ticket. One ticket to first class. And when she sat down in that seat, every single person stared at her. They whispered. They judged. They laughed. But nobody, not one person, knew her story. And when they finally heard it, the entire cabin went silent. This is the story of Zara. And it will change the way you see people forever. My name is Zara. And I want to tell you about the day I sat in first class. Not because of the big seat. Not because of the free food. Not because of the warm blanket they gave me, though that blanket was the softest thing I had ever touched in my entire life. I want to tell you about that day because of what happened. Because of the silence. Because of the faces of those people when they finally understood. But to tell you that story, I have to start from the beginning. And the beginning is not a beautiful place. I grew up in a small town called Mirpur. Not a city. Not a village. Something in between. Tired place. A place where people worked hard and got very little. A place where the roads had holes and the schools had broken windows and the dreams were small because small dreams hurt less when they die. My father drove a rickshaw. Every morning, before the sun came up, he went out. Every night, after the sun went down, he came back. His hands were rough. His back was always hurting. But he smiled every time he walked through the door. "Zara," he would call out, "come and see what I brought." Sometimes it was a small mango. Sometimes a single biscuit. Once, and I never forgot this, he brought a tiny plastic flower. Pink. Fake. But he held it like it was made of gold. "For my queen," he said. I was 8 years old. I kept that plastic flower for 15 years. My mother was quiet. Not sad quiet. Peaceful quiet. She moved through our small house like water. Soft. Steady. Always finding a way. She sewed clothes for neighbors. She made food from almost nothing. She sang to herself when she thought nobody was listening. I always listened. We were 4. Me, my younger brother Bilal, and my parents. 4 people in 3 rooms. 1 bathroom shared with 2 other families on the same floor. We were not unhappy. I want to be clear about that. Some of my best memories come from that small apartment. Eating together on the floor, all 4 of us, laughing about nothing. My father doing bad impressions of famous people. My mother pretending not to laugh and then laughing anyway. We were poor, but we were full. Full of each other. When I was 12, things changed. My father had a road accident. Nothing very dramatic. A car hit his rickshaw from behind. He fell. He hurt his back. Badly. He could not drive anymore. Not for months. And then, even when the months passed, not the same way. He was slower. He was in pain all the time. He never said so. But I could see it in the way he moved. In the way he sat down very carefully, like he was made of glass. He still went out every day. Still tried. But some days he came home with almost nothing. Some days nothing at all. My mother started sewing more. Longer hours. Her eyes became weak. She started squinting at her work. I would sit beside her and hold the light closer so she could see better. I was 12 years old, holding a light for my mother at 10 at night. I did not feel sorry for myself. I am telling you this not for sympathy. I am telling you because this is what made me who I am. Hardship either breaks you or builds you. It depends on what you decide. I decided. I was a good student. Not just good. I was the kind of student that teachers talk about for years after you leave. I loved learning the way some people love food. I was hungry for it all the time. Mathematics, science, English, history, all of it. My English teacher, Sir Cameron, had a small shelf of books in his classroom. Old books, some with torn covers. He let me borrow them. I read every single one. He told me once, "Zara, you have a brain that does not know it is poor." I did not fully understand what he meant then. Later I did. When I was 16, Sir Cameron called my parents to school. He sat with them and he said something that changed everything. He said there was a scholarship, a national scholarship for bright students from low-income families. Full funding, university in the city, hostel, food, books, all paid. My father looked at him. For Zara. For Zara, Sir Cameron said. If she works for it. My father turned to me. His eyes were full. He never cried in front of us. Never. But that day his eyes were full. Work for it, he said. That was all. I worked for it. For 1 year I studied like my life depended on it. Because it did. I woke up at 4 every morning. I studied before school. I studied after school. I studied on weekends. Sir Cameron stayed late to help me. He brought extra books. He printed past papers from the internet at his own cost. My mother made me warm milk every night, even when milk was expensive. She said it was good for the brain. I think she just wanted to take care of me. Let her. The exam was on a cold morning in February. I remember sitting down at the desk. I remember looking at the paper. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the door. Either it opens or it doesn't. It opened. 3 months later I got a letter. White envelope. Official stamp. I was accepted. Full scholarship. University in Karachi. Everything paid. I read the letter 3 times. Then I gave it to my mother. She read it. She put it down carefully on the table. Then she went to the kitchen. I thought she was okay. I thought maybe she was not as excited as me. Then I heard her, crying in the kitchen, trying to be quiet, not succeeding. I went in. I put my arms around her from behind. She held my hands. We stayed like that for a long time, not talking, just holding. Going to university was like going to another planet. Everything was different. The buildings, the food, the way people talked, the way people dressed, the words they used, the things they cared about. I came with 1 suitcase. Old. One of the wheels did not turn properly. I dragged it across the university campus, that while making a terrible scraping sound, and I told myself it does not matter. None of this matters. I am here. That is what matters. My roommate was a girl named Hania. She came from a rich family in Lahore. Beautiful clothes. Nice phone. A big suitcase with all wheels working perfectly. She looked at me when I came in. At my suitcase. At my clothes. At my face. I waited. I had learned to wait for the judgment. I had gotten very good at this. But Hania just smiled. I was hoping my roommate would come today, she said. I hate being alone. That was it. No judgment. No coldness. That was the beginning of the best friendship of my life. University was hard in ways I had not expected. The classes were difficult. But I had always studied hard, that part one could handle. The harder part was everything else. The other students went out for dinner at nice restaurants. I stayed in. They bought new clothes for parties. I wore the same 3 outfits in rotation. They talked about trips they had taken, countries they had visited. I had never left my province. I did not complain. I did not explain. I just smiled and worked and studied. But sometimes, late at night, when Hania was asleep and the room was dark, I felt a cold loneliness that had no name. I missed my father's laugh, my mother's quiet singing, Bilal's annoying questions, the pink plastic flower on my shelf at home. I called home every Sunday. My mother always answered fast, like she had been sitting by the phone waiting. "Are you eating?" she always asked. "Yes, Mama." "Are people good to you?" Pause. "Mostly yes." She heard the pause. Mothers always hear the pause. "Zara," she said softly, "you are a diamond. Diamonds do not worry about being in a rough place. They just keep shining. For years past, I graduated with honors. Top of my department. I had won 2 academic awards and published a small research paper, the first person in my family to ever do any of those things. My parents came to the graduation. My father wore his best shalwar kameez. I knew it was his best because he only wore it for Eid. My mother wore a green dupatta I had never seen before. She must have bought it specially. They sat in the crowd of parents and I walked across the stage and I heard my father clap. Not politely, loudly, too loudly. Some people around him turned to look. He did not care at all. I looked at him from the stage. He was standing up, clapping and smiling, and he looked so proud that it made my chest hurt in the best possible way. After graduation, I got a job, a real job, in Karachi, a company that did international trade. They needed someone young, smart, and hardworking, someone who knew English well, someone who could travel sometimes for work. Travel. I had never been on a plane. The salary was good. Not rich, but good. Better than anything my family had ever had. I sent money home every month. My father stopped driving the rickshaw. He said his back was too bad. I told him to rest. For the first time in 30 years, my father rested. He called me one evening and said, "Zara, I don't know what to do with all this time." I laughed. "Read books, Baba. Watch TV. Sleep late." He was quiet. "I never slept late in my life." "Try it," I said. He laughed. It was the same laugh from my childhood. Warm and rumbling, like distant thunder. I worked hard at the company. I was good at my job. My boss noticed. After 2 years, he gave me a promotion. And with the promotion came something I had never imagined. An international business trip. London. I remember staring at the ticket on my computer screen. London, England. A real place. A place I had read about in books. A place people in movies went to. And then I saw something else on the ticket. First class. My boss had booked first class. For me. Because the company had a rule, senior staff travel first class on international flights. I was senior staff now. I read that ticket 4 times. The day of the flight, I woke up very early. Too early. I had barely slept. I dressed carefully in my best suit. I had bought it 6 months ago for a client meeting. Dark blue. Professional. I looked in the mirror for a long time. I thought about the 12-year-old girl holding a light for her mother at 10 at night. I thought about the 16-year-old sitting down for an exam that would decide everything. I thought about dragging a broken suitcase across a university campus while other people stared. "You got here," I told the person in the mirror. Then I picked up my bag and went to the airport. The airport was overwhelming. Big and bright and loud. People everywhere. Signs in English and Urdu. Announcements in 3 languages. I followed the signs to check in. First class check-in. A separate area. Quiet. Calm. White counters. Very clean. The woman at the counter was perfectly dressed. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. She looked at my ticket. She looked at me. Something passed across her face. Very fast. Just for a second. Surprise. That was what it was. She had not expected someone who looked like me, young, brown, a woman alone, to be standing at the first-class counter. I saw it. I had gotten very good at seeing it. "Good morning," I said in my clearest English. "I have a first-class booking." The second passed. Her professional smile came back. "Of course. Welcome. May I see your passport?" She checked me inefficiently, professionally, correctly. But for that 1 second I had seen it. I smiled, picked up my boarding pass, and walked toward security. The first-class lounge was something I was not prepared for. Comfortable chairs, soft lighting, A buffet of food, hot food, cold food, things I did not know the names of. Coffee, tea, juices, newspapers in many languages. Everything free. I sat in a chair. Soft, very soft. I picked up a cup of coffee. Real coffee, not the instant kind. I held that cup and I thought, my father worked 30 years in a rickshaw and never sat in a place like this. And I am here after 2 years of a job. Life is very strange and very unfair. And sometimes, just sometimes, it gives you something extraordinary. Boarding time came. I walked down the jet bridge and turned left. Left into first class. I had never turned left on a plane before. Nobody in my family had ever turned left. The seats were enormous. More like small beds. Wide, cream-colored, private. Little reading lights. A small screen. A menu, an actual printed menu like a restaurant. A flight attendant greeted me with a warm smile. Welcome. Can I help you find your seat? I showed her my boarding pass. She led me to my seat. Window seat. Perfect. I sat down. And then the other passengers started coming. I noticed them noticing me. The first man was in a business suit. Expensive watch. Silver hair. He looked at me as he passed. His eyes went from my face to my clothes to my bag and back to my face. He said nothing. He went to his seat. But he looked back once. Couple came next. Woman in a designer coat. Man with the confident walk of someone who had always had money. The woman saw me and leaned slightly toward her husband and said something. Very quiet, but I could see her mouth move. I could see him glance at me. Then an older woman. She stopped near my seat. She looked at me directly. Excuse me, she said in English, polite but pointed. Are you sure this is your seat? Yes, I said. I showed her my boarding pass. She looked at it. She looked at me. She moved to her own seat, but she kept looking back. Every few minutes, like she was waiting for me to make a mistake. Like she was waiting to be proven right about whatever she had already decided about me. I looked out the window at the runway. I kept my face calm. I had practiced keeping my face calm. Years of practice. Inside, something was burning. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a very quiet, very old pain. The pain of being looked at like you do not belong somewhere. The pain of being judged before you have said a single word. I knew this pain very well. The plane took off. The flight attendant brought menus. She handed one to each passenger. When she handed mine to me, her smile was genuine. Uncomplicated. I was grateful for it. I looked at the menu. I ordered something I could not pronounce. I decided that today, I was going to try everything. Every new thing. I had earned this seat. I was going to sit in it fully. The food came. It was beautiful. Small, perfect portions. Real plates, not plastic. Real glasses. A little vase with a flower. I ate slowly. I tasted everything carefully. I looked out at the clouds. This is what flying is, I thought. This white, quiet world above the world. I had read about clouds in a book when I was 10. I had never imagined I would sit inside one. About 2 hours into the flight, something happened. The older woman, the one who had asked if I was sure about my seat, pressed her call button. The flight attendant came quickly. The woman spoke in a low voice, but the cabin was quiet, and I have always had sharp hearing. She said she was not comfortable. She said something felt wrong. She said she thought there might be a security issue. She did not use my name. She did not point at me directly, but she glanced at me once. The flight attendant's face was very professional. She said, I understand your concern. Everything is completely fine. Is there anything I can get you? The woman pressed her lips together. She said, I just think it is strange. That girl. She doesn't look like she belongs here. Silence. The flight attendant looked at the woman for a moment. Then she said, in a very clear, very calm voice, just calm enough that you could hear exactly what she meant. Ma'am, every passenger in first class has a valid ticket and a right to this cabin. Is there anything else I can help you with? The woman said nothing. The flight attendant smiled, turned, and went back to her station. In the seat across from me, I saw the silver-haired man look at the older woman. He looked away. His face was uncomfortable. The couple with the designer coat. The woman was looking at her hands. Nobody said anything. I turned back to my window. The clouds were still there, perfect and white and completely unbothered by any of this. An hour later, I heard a small noise. I turned. The older woman, the one who had complained, was pressing her hand to her chest. Her face was strange, pale. She was breathing in short, quick breaths. The man next to her noticed. "Are you all right?" he said. She shook her head slightly. Her hand pressed harder against her chest. A flight attendant appeared immediately. She saw the woman's face. She turned quickly. "Is there a doctor or medical professional on board? Please press your call button." Nobody pressed anything. The flight attendant spoke into her radio quietly. I looked at the woman. Her lips were going slightly blue at the edges. Her breathing was getting worse. I unclipped my seatbelt. I was not a doctor. I want to be clear about that. I was not a doctor, but I had taken a first aid course, a basic one, mandatory at my company. All staff had to do it before international travel. I had paid attention. I had read the extra materials they gave us because I was the kind of person who always read the extra materials. I walked across the aisle to the woman. "Ma'am," I said, "I am not a doctor, but I have first aid training. Can I help?" She looked at me, the same woman who had said I did not belong here. She looked at me with frightened eyes. She nodded, very small, very fast. I crouched beside her. I spoke to her calmly. I asked her questions. When did it start? Where was the pain exactly? Had this happened before? She answered. Small words. She was scared. The flight attendant brought the emergency kit. I checked her pulse. I loosened her collar. I helped her sit in the correct position. I stayed with her, talking quietly, keeping her calm, keeping her awake. The pain in her chest slowly became less. Her color slowly came back. The pilot made an announcement. They were monitoring the situation. A medical advisor on the ground was being consulted by radio. 20 minutes later, the woman's breathing was normal. The blue around her lips was gone. She looked at me. I was still crouched beside her. My suit jacket was wrinkled. My hair had come loose. "You're going to be okay," I said. "Just breathe slowly. In and out." She breathed. In and out. In and out. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, she said, very quietly, like the word cost her something, "Thank you." I nodded. I stood up. I went back to my seat. The cabin was completely silent. Every single person in first class was looking at me. Not the way they had looked at me when I boarded. Differently. The silver-haired man, the couple, the other passengers, all of them, looking at me with the silence that comes when people realize they have been wrong. The particular, heavy silence of shame and understanding arriving at the same time. Nobody spoke. I sat down. I looked out the window. The clouds were still there. After a while, the flight attendant came to me. She crouched beside my seat. Her voice was soft. "That was remarkable," she said. "You were so calm." "I was not calm," I said honestly. "I was very scared." She smiled. "You didn't show it." "I have a lot of practice not showing it," I said. She looked at me. I think she understood more than those words. I think she heard everything underneath them. "Can I get you anything?" she said. "That coffee," I said. "The good one. From before." She laughed softly. "Of course." Later, much later, when the cabin was quieter and most people were sleeping or watching their screens, the silver-haired man came to me. He stood in the aisle beside my seat. He was holding a small glass of juice, like he needed something to do with his hands. "Excuse me," he said. I looked at him. I wanted to say. He stopped. He started again. "When you boarded, I looked at you in a way that was... I was not." He stopped again. I waited. "I was wrong," he said finally. Simply. He did not try to explain it away. He did not make excuses. He just said, "I was wrong." I looked at him for a moment. "Thank you for saying that," I said. He nodded. He went back to his seat. The couple, the woman in the designer coat, she did not come to me. But I caught her looking at me twice during the rest of the flight. Not with judgment. With something different. Something slower. Something that looked like reflection. The older woman, the one I had helped, she slept for a while. When she woke up, her husband, who had joined her from economy, they had let him come to first class to be with her, was holding her hand. Before we landed, she called the flight attendant. She said she wanted to speak to the young woman. The one in 3A. That was me. The flight attendant came to get me. I walked over to her seat. She was sitting up properly now. Color back in her face. Hands in her lap. She looked at me. "I said something terrible," she said. "About you. When you boarded." "I heard," I said. She closed her eyes briefly. Opened them. "I don't have an excuse," she said. "I made an assumption. About who you were. About whether you belonged. And I was..." Her voice wavered. "I was very wrong." I looked at her old hands. I thought about my mother's hands. Rough and kind. "You were scared," I said. "People say and do wrong things when they are scared." She shook her head. "That is generous. More generous than I deserve." "Maybe," I said. "But I have been judged my whole life by people who thought they knew who I was from looking at me. I decided a long time ago, I will not become bitter about it. Because bitterness is heavy. And I have a long way to go." She was quiet. "Who are you?" she asked. Not rude. Genuinely wanting to know. So I told her. Not everything. But the important things. The small town. The rickshaw driver father. The scholarship. The job. The first-class ticket I had earned. She listened with her hands very still in her lap. When I finished, she said nothing for a long time. Then she said, "I had a daughter. She was smart like you. She wanted to change the world." A pause. "She died 8 years ago. Illness." I said nothing. Sometimes nothing is the right thing. "I see her sometimes," the woman said quietly. "In young women who are going somewhere, who have that look, that determined look." She looked at me. "You have it." My throat was tight. "I am sorry about your daughter," I said. "Thank you," she said. Then, "What is your name?" "Zara," I said. She nodded slowly. "Zara," she repeated, like she was remembering it. "My daughter's name was Miriam," she said. We sat with that for a moment. "Safe travels, Zara," she said finally. "Safe travels," I said. We landed in London. The cabin moved with the sounds of landing. Seatbelts, bags, screens turning off. Everyone getting ready to become regular people again on the ground in the world. I gathered my things. As I stood in the aisle waiting to exit, the flight attendant, the one who had defended me, who had brought me the good coffee, she passed by me. She pressed something into my hand. I looked at it. A small card. Her name and a handwritten note. "You made this flight unforgettable. The world needs more people like you." I put the card in my pocket carefully. London was cold and gray and beautiful. I went to my meetings. I did my work. I was good at my work. In the evenings, I walked around the city. I saw things I had only seen in books. Big buildings, old churches, a river wide and gray and ancient, parks with bare winter trees. I called my father from a park bench on the second evening. "Baba," I said, "I am in London." "London," he said, like it was a miracle. "How is it?" "Cold," I said, "and beautiful. Are people good to you?" I thought about the woman on the plane, about the way she had looked at me when I boarded, about the silence after I helped her, about the silver-haired man saying simply, "I was wrong." "Some people make mistakes," I said, "but then some of them fix them." He was quiet. Then he said, "That is life, Zara." "Yes," I said, "that is life." I looked at the river, wide and gray and moving. "Baba," I said, "remember that plastic flower you brought me? When I was 8. The pink one." He laughed. "Yes, I remember. I found it on the ground near a wedding. I cleaned it and brought it for you." "I still have it," I said. He was quiet for a moment. "I have been thinking lately," he said, "about all the things I could not give you, the things other fathers give. Money, nice clothes, good schools with no broken windows." "Baba, let me finish," he said gently. "I was thinking about all that I could not give, and then I thought, but she is in London. She earned her way to London, and she got there without any of those things." A pause. "So maybe the things I gave you were the right things after all." I pressed my lips together hard. "They were the right things," I said. My voice was not very steady. "Good," he said. "Now go eat something. London food is expensive. Eat something good." I laughed. Even with my not very steady voice, I laughed. "Yes, Baba," I said. I came home from London 2 weeks later. I brought gifts, chocolates for my mother, a good pen for my father, a gadget for Bilal that he had been asking about for months. My mother met me at the door. She held my face in both hands and looked at me. "You look different," she said. "Good different or bad different?" I asked. She smiled. "Bigger different. Like you grew." I thought about the plane, the cloud-white world above the world, the silence of people realizing they were wrong, the old woman telling me about her daughter named Miriam, the river in London, wide and moving. "I did grow," I said. "A little." My mother nodded, satisfied. She let go of my face. "Come in," she said. "The food is ready." A year later, something changed at my company. They were expanding, opening a new division. They needed someone to lead it, someone smart, experienced, and, importantly, someone who could travel and represent the company internationally. My boss called me into his office. "I want you to consider this position," he said. "It is a big step." "Yes," I said immediately. He blinked. "You don't want to think about it?" "I have been thinking about it my whole life," I said. "I just didn't know what it was called." He laughed. He was a good boss. He respected people who knew their own minds. I got the position. 2 years after the London flight, I was on a plane again. This time Dubai. Another business trip. Another first-class ticket. I turned left again. This time, when I sat down, I looked at the other passengers. A woman in business clothes, busy on her laptop. An older man asleep already. A young couple excited about their trip. All kinds of people, all going somewhere. I thought about how we look at strangers. How we decide in 1 second, from their clothes, their face, their bag, who they are. What they deserve. Whether they belong. I thought about everything we miss when we do that. I looked out the window as the plane prepared to move. I thought about my father and his pink plastic flower. I thought about my mother and her quiet singing. I thought about Sir Cameron and his shelf of old books. I thought about Hania, who had just smiled and said she was glad I came. I thought about the flight attendant who had pressed a card into my hand. All the people who had chosen not to look at me and make a fast decision. Who had chosen to wait, to see, to know. And I thought about the woman who had first chosen wrong, and then chosen to be honest about it, which is its own kind of courage. The plane moved, then it ran, then the ground fell away, and we were in the air, rising into the white, quiet world above the world. I looked out at the clouds. I am Zara. I grew up in a small, tired town with a father who drove a rickshaw and a mother who sang quietly, and a broken suitcase with one wheel that scraped the ground. I sat in first class and people looked at me like I did not belong. And then I showed them who I was. Not by arguing. Not by explaining. Not by being angry. By being exactly, completely, fully myself. That is all it took. That is always all it takes. Today I lead a team of 20 people. I travel 4 times a year. My father has a comfortable chair in a comfortable house that I helped buy. My mother's eyes are better. I paid for her glasses 2 years ago. Bilal is in university now. He calls me every Sunday, the way I used to call our mother. Are you eating? I ask him. He laughs every time. I know what I am doing when I ask that. I know. And so does he. Some questions are not about food. Last month I was at the airport again. I was checking in at the first class counter. In front of me was a young woman. Young, maybe 18 or 19. Simple clothes. Nervous eyes. She was holding her boarding pass very tight. She looked at the first class sign. She looked at her boarding pass. She looked at the sign again, like she could not quite believe she was in the right place. I knew that feeling. She walked forward slowly, hesitantly, waiting for someone to stop her. Nobody stopped her. She checked in. She got her boarding pass. She turned to walk towards security. As she passed me, I said quietly, just to her, "You belong here." She stopped. She looked at me. I smiled. She looked surprised. Then something in her face changed. Relaxed. Opened. She smiled back. Then she walked forward. Head a little higher. Steps a little steadier. I watched her go. And I thought, that is how it works. That is exactly how it works. One person sees you. Really sees you. And it gives you just enough to keep going. Someone did that for me. Many times. In many ways. Now it is my turn. It is always, eventually, your turn. My name is Zara. I sat in first class. And what happened next made everyone silent. But the part that mattered most, the part one carry with me everywhere, is not the silence. It is everything that came before it. And everything that came after. That is where the real story lives.